I wanted to welcome you to the first Critical Digital Humanities International Conference. My name is Elspeth Brown, and I'm the Faculty Director of the Critical Digital Humanities Initiative and a faculty member in Historical Studies and History here at the University of Toronto. So it's my pleasure to open our first plenary session and to welcome all of you to Toronto. Whether you're here physically in the city or joining virtually, we're all coming together virtually via Zoom for our first day. When we launched CDHI in May of 2021, I could not have anticipated hosting such a large, transdisciplinary, diverse group of scholars from around the world. Our program includes more than 420 participants from 38 countries and 6 continents and 132 institutions over today and tomorrow. Reflecting our commitment to supporting emerging scholars, half of our participants are postdoc fellows and graduate students. So the Critical Digital Humanities Initiative, or CDHI, is a strategic research initiative at the University of Toronto. We emphasize questions of power, social justice, and critical theory in making and analyzing digital technologies. Our version of DH places accessible, anti-racist, decolonial, feminist, and queer, trans, non-binary work at its core, and which understands our current historical shift in digital technology as an opportunity for social and political transformation. So to learn more about our work and our upcoming programs and events, I encourage you to visit our website, which is dhn.utoronto.ca, the DHN standing for the Digital Humanities Network, which has predated CDHI. Now, for those of you on Twitter, we would love to hear your thoughts on all of the sessions. We'll be tweeting as well. Please add your voice to the conversation and be sure to tag us at U of T DHN or use the hashtag CDHICon22. It's my great pleasure to introduce our colleagues, Professor Karen Recollet and Professor John Johnson, who will be opening our conference with a land acknowledgement, and will then welcome our first keynote speaker, Professor Jennifer Wemigwans, and also will be moderating the plenary discussion afterwards. So Karen Recollet is an urban Cree scholar, artist, and writer born in Sturgeon Lake First Nation. Karen's research focuses on relationality and care as analytics and technology for Indigenous movement-based forms of inquiry in urban spaces. She's an assistant professor in the Women's Studies Institute at the University of Toronto. John Johnson is an assistant professor at U of T's Woodsworth College. His research focuses on urban land-based Indigenous knowledge in Toronto, as well as oral and digital storytelling. He works with Toronto's Indigenous community in his capacity as lead organizer for First Story Toronto. He is of French-Canadian and Haudenosaunee ancestry. So please let me pass this on to Karen and John for the wonderful welcome for our plenary speaker today.
I wish to start with gratitude. I wish to start with breath. I wish to start with an appreciation for all the forms of life, especially those forms that have been impacted by racial capitalism, that are struggling. Thank you for continuing, despite everything, to be in relation. I wish to be that helper that thinks with you and supports the ways your limbs and roots tentacularly grasp towards futures, towards the stars, towards rock, to be there for you in these enduring winds, to honor how much you have witnessed and offered our children as spaces of refuge. You, that one tree standing in the schoolyard of not too long ago, what you have seen, what you have felt, and what you continue to endure. As you take on the affect of this aftermath that continues to spark threatening flames, we live within these apocalypses and lean once again into you for support. We offer our gratitude for these more than human relatives.
I wish to acknowledge that this conference is hosted within the traditional lands of the Wendat Confederacy, the Onondaga or Seneca of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, part of the Anishinaabe Three Fires Confederacy. The ancestors of these nations have lived within these lands continuously for the last at least 13,000 years. Millennia of Indigenous engagements have shaped these lands. Many of Toronto's earliest and most prominent roads, including Yonge Street, Dundas, Davenport Road, follow or were inspired by Indigenous trails and knowledge of the land. Before the arrival of Europeans to this area, the trails through these lands facilitated intercontinental trade networks that made Toronto an important gathering place for trade, politics, and ceremony. Indigenous peoples used controlled burns to maintain and expand savanna ecologies in different parts of Toronto, like High Park and Rosedale, Deer Park, the beaches, and Rouge Park. These environments supported incredible biodiversity and abundance in these lands. The neighborhood of Mimico in Toronto's West End reflects the original Anishinaabemowin name for that place, Omimika, the place of the wild pigeons. By the time of a European arrival, that place was home to hundreds of thousands of passenger pigeons, now extinct. They were fed by the acorns and abundance of the nearby First Nations savannas. First Nations ancestors built sacred mounds in High Park as gathering places where winged relations often soared above, spiraling ever higher before journeying southward on their migrations around Lake Ontario. Ontario is derived from Onik Dario, a word that meant beautiful water in Onondaga language. Peace and friendship treaties like the Dish with One Spoon Wampum were created and maintained to protect this place of ongoing life and livingness, and to ensure that it was shared in an equitable way. It's no overstatement to say that the reason Toronto is here today is because Indigenous peoples have gathered here, have activated futures here to make it a capacious, important place. Today, we're also party to the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Treaty and have responsibilities to understand and uphold its principles of environmental stewardship, justice, and equity in our daily lives. We need to continually listen and to support Indigenous folks in Toronto, currently numbering over 100,000, and align ourselves with their efforts to continue this work of embodying the relations of the Dish with One Spoon Treaty. Today, as we discuss the exciting possibilities of new and emerging digital technologies, it's important to also acknowledge and hold space for the original technologies that continue to be dedicated to the purpose of living a good life in relationship with the more than human world, contextualized by radical and relational thinkers such as Jennifer Wemigwans, whom we are about to be in relation with soon. It is important in our roles as helpers and witnesses that embrace these thoughts, ideas, and concepts by leaning into them without the need to consume, that we think deeply about the work that we do in support as helpers, as witnesses, and consider how we orient ourselves to these important provocations. As we gather today around these concepts and ideas, we can ask ourselves, what are our processes of being in ethical relationship here in this space that is fraught, rupturous, situated on contentious grounds of stolen lands?
What does it mean to orient ourselves and to reorient ourselves into thinking with the spirals of Bear Mound, to think in relationship with alternative shapes and forms of gathering, to share and co-constitute knowledges that are prompted by Wemigwans' provocations that the role of the helper is a capacious space maker, that we world and we-world together over and over again in the face of multiple apocalypses that Black and Brown bodies continue to be in relationship with. Today in Canada is National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, also known as Orange Shirt Day. We create space here today to think about the multiple ways we can be helpers, but always and into the future. We not only acknowledge that this is the bare minimum, but we activate relations, we orient our intentions, we meaningfully gather around the reparations of the significant harms to Indigenous communities from residential school systems in Canada. This is a time when non-Indigenous Canadians must rededicate themselves to the work that still needs to be done in collaboration with Indigenous communities to dismantle settler colonial structures in Canada towards ongoing beautiful futures for Indigenous peoples. This is a time not just a moment, but an ongoing commitment to center our efforts towards Indigenous life and ongoing livingness. What does it mean to be a helper in this space? What are the textures, the codes, the signifiers that we need to gather around to focus on ongoing relations and ongoing life? It is a time of reckoning, but also a time of providing the spaces and resources for Indigenous people and Black people to gather, to determine for themselves their visions of the future, and maybe in terms of our engagements. We take leadership from them. We align ourselves as helpers. This means that we have to be patient. We have to offer space. We offer resources. We learn to let go. We transform, we align ourselves with the dish with one spoon. This is the work. Many of us are currently collaborating ethically with Indigenous communities. We try to embody the role of the helper, and this is where John was speaking. The helper is an orientation of humility, one that seeks to first understand and then use supports and resources. This is the work of decolonization and revitalization that Indigenous communities are already doing. It is our hope that this ethic informs today's conversation. We think with the spiral today, as the spiral incorporates a speculative architecture that gestures towards the future, the stars, the constellations that help us to understand deeply what the shapes of our gatherings need to become. The dish with one spoon is up there, is strong, and we lean into this space to think about our processes, our ways of being in relation, and to reorient them. I look forward to how Jennifer gathers us in this way to think about our responsibilities as helpers. Jennifer, we appreciate all of your labor, all of the responsibilities that you continue to take on, and we hope to share in this labor with you today. Thank you, Jennifer. And for those of you that have yet to witness this brilliant force, Jennifer is from this beautiful place that we know as Wiikwemkoong Unceded Territory on Manitoulin Island, a new media producer, writer, and scholar. Jennifer specializes in the convergence between education, Indigenous knowledge, and new media technologies. Jennifer's book, A Digital Bundle, Protecting and Promoting Indigenous Knowledge Online, has been honored, cared for, kept in special places, on bedsides. It rests on a special bookcase beside children's artwork. It is a bundle, a futurity bundle. Dr. Wemigwans' work leans into Indigenous creative relational practices and creates space for other brilliant co-conspirators to engage and build, envision a future together, and build, and think about our kinships together, and build, and remember old blankets passed down from our grandparents, and build. Dr. Wemigwans' practices a cultural ethics of care and Indigenous protocols of creation in their work, which signify digital bundles as new spaces for sharing Indigenous knowledge and challenge non-Indigenous audiences to step outside of their comfortable codified systems and learn a new way of being and perceiving the world. Their work is a hub, a signifier for future gatherings. She is a friend, a lovely human, and an assistant professor in the Adult Education and Community Development program at OISE University of Toronto. Take it away, Jennifer.
Miigwech, Karen, Miigwech, John, that was so beautiful. And what a lovely way to start the day and open with that, that beautiful Thanksgiving, that gratitude. Miigwech for that. So speaking of Thanksgiving and gratitude, I want to thank Danielle Taschereau-Mammers, Laura Smith, and Elspeth Brown for creating this space today. And I also want to give a special thank you to TL Cowan for your ongoing support and encouragement. Really, this is, yeah, I just wanted to start with my own gratitude. So miigwech. So today, September 30th, has been marked as a day for truth and reconciliation. I'm going to just share my slides here. Okay. And for those of you who are not from here, this day commemorates the Indigenous survivors of residential school. Oh, sorry. Oh, I thought I heard. Okay, so for those of you who are not from here, this day commemorates the Indigenous survivors of residential school, but it also marks the deaths of thousands of Indigenous children. Today, my auntie will be at Toronto City Hall. I have very mixed feelings about this day because every day is a day to seek out truth, and every day is a day for people to take responsibility.
Excuse me, we're not seeing your slides. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Oh, no, thank you for that. It says you are screen sharing.
Yeah, but we are seeing our own images.
I can see the slides, Jennifer. So I'm not sure if it's an individual problem or if it's more than one person.
I can see.
All right,
them
my
too.
apologies. I'll try to fix it here.
Okay,
Oh,
it looks like
okay.
most people are seeing it. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see the slides too.
Sorry for the interruption.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so yeah, so I'm talking, you know, every day is a day to seek out truth, and every day is a day for people to take responsibility, because without responsibility, there will be no reconciliation. So rather than take a minute of silence, I want to dedicate this talk to truth and responsibility. So historically, Indigenous knowledge was not recognized or acknowledged by colonial settlers who were intent on occupying and taking Indigenous land. Today, not much has changed, as many non-Indigenous people have no idea what constitutes Indigenous knowledge. Ongoing erasure of Indigenous knowledge has resulted in mainstream educators, policymakers, government bodies, and citizens in general needing to be educated on the importance of Indigenous knowledge and what it constitutes, as they currently have no reference point for it and willingly remain unaware. And while some may be interested in learning, many others want to facilitate ignorance and erasure in order to keep and continue occupying and taking Indigenous land. Residential schools did not facilitate learning. Residential schools destroyed families, and with that, they eradicated the transference of Indigenous knowledge for children by removing them from their families and communities. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission, along with many reports before them, have reiterated the need for public education to address Indigenous knowledge and education in the curriculum. To date, this has not been achieved on a national scale. In 2008, the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People stated that, quote, Indigenous peoples have the right to revitalize, use, develop, and transmit to future generations their histories, languages, oral traditions, philosophies, writing systems, and literatures, and to designate and retain their own names for communities, places, and persons. In discussing my work on digital bundles today, I will show you how this work names and reclaims, but also how it has the potential to facilitate access to Indigenous knowledge online for educators and communities nationally. In reading Resurgence and Reconciliation, Indigenous Settler Relations and Earth Teachings, edited by Michael Ash, John Burroughs, and James Tully, I appreciated the question being put forward, which they say, what are genuinely self-determining practices of resurgence and transformative forms of reconciliation today? And how are they distinguished from non-robust and non-transformative practices and reconciliation? Burroughs and Tully state in the introduction that this is not only a theoretical question, but a practical one. Which brings me to my work. A digital bundle is a space created with the use of new technologies for the purposes of sharing Indigenous knowledge. For those of you coming to this work for the first time, I will share a 3-minute introduction clip to a website that I produced and launched in 2006.
The American continents have been called the New World, but our histories as the original peoples of these lands tell us we have always been here, that we belong to these places which are sacred to us. Our collective memories go far back beyond what the modern world considers history. We have shared these continents in all the 4 directions for many thousands of years. To us, this is the old world, and there have been many nations here through the ages. Each of our nations has always had their own ways of life, with distinct beliefs and languages, economic, political, and social systems, and medicinal, ecological, and other forms of knowledge. Every one of these nations has its own way to recognize its place in the greater hoop that we're all part of. And all our diverse forms of knowledge lead back to that common circle. Through our various traditions, we recognize that everything in the universe is connected, that everything has being and deserves respect. We never worship the sun or animals or other forms of nature as gods, but we recognize that these things are symbols of mysteries that cannot be explained in words, and that they all lead back to the greatest mystery of all, the source of all creation. So through our stories and songs, we have always recognized the same ultimate creative force. Some of our elders still remember and maintain the foundations of our original knowledge. We believe that these forms of knowledge can help address urgent matters for the world today. Here we share a few teachings of elders from some of the original nations of North America. The Mi'kmaq of the Atlantic region, the Mohawk or Haudenosaunee of southern Quebec and Ontario and upper New York State, the Ojibwe or Anishinaabeg of the Great Lakes region, the Cree or Nahiwak of the Canadian prairies and woodlands, and the Piikani Blackfoot of southern Alberta and northern Montana. Welcome to the Four Directions Interactive Teachings.
Okay, so this site was designed to celebrate Indigenous knowledge by honoring the process of listening with intent to the teachings of elders and traditional teachers from 5 distinct Indigenous nations. They are Tom Porter, Mohawk, Mary Lee, Cree, Stephen Augustine, Mi'kmaq, Lillian Pitawanakwat, Anishinaabe, Reg Crowshoe, and Jeff Crow Eagle, Blackfoot. It is significant to note that each elder knowledge keeper is featured prominently on the site. Their individual biographies are positioned with their teachings, which avoids a pan-Indian approach and speaks to Indigenous methodology of location. That is, the biography locates each elder and knowledge keeper within their community, which conveys to the visitor how they are or have become acknowledged and accepted as an elder. Further, this approach demonstrates that the teachings and knowledge shared are not generic, but are in fact a specific teaching from an acknowledged and valued cultural teacher. That is a person who is recognized as having the cultural protocol to share that teaching. For example, Stephen Augustine's bio states that he is a hereditary chief, and Tom Porter's bio points to his early activism with Indigenous knowledge keepers. Within Indigenous epistemologies and teachings, there are the 4 directions. So within Indigenous epistemologies, the teachings of the 4 directions are central and key to philosophical understandings of the universe and human beings' roles and responsibilities. Indigenous visitors to the site are able to read the relationships of the 4 directions and understand that the direction and placement of each quadrant has a significant meaning for each teaching. Non-Indigenous visitors to the site don't recognize that the stories being shared are teachings. They don't recognize the importance of the interface design and how the circle represents a holistic model that is rooted in the teachings of the 4 directions. They seem unable to grasp that part of the teaching is the interface design that shows the relationship of each direction and hence the impact and flow of relationality from each of the 4 directions. Non-Indigenous reception of the site seems completely unable to grasp that it is not linear, it is not text-based, it is relational. And just as Western people have talked about theory and signifiers, so do Indigenous people. But we have our own set of signifiers and our own set of theories and models. In the article Centering Relationality, a Conceptual Model to Advance Indigenous Knowledge Organization Practices, authors Sandra Littletree, Miranda Belardi-Lewis, and Marissa Duarte make the distinction between library and information science and principles of Indigenous librarianship and practices, which they say are grounded in a more community-based approach, namely a relational approach. And it is this relational approach that honors the profound relationships between people, community, the land, waters, and all living beings. So the circle, the medicine wheel, the teepee, they are signifiers. In fact, we could say that they are relational signifiers that are particular to diverse Indigenous nations and to the elders and knowledge keepers who teach them. John Burroughs, one of the people I interviewed for my book, A Digital Bundle, shared that, for example, he said, I could see how this would help me to implement our treaty or deal with the storage of nuclear waste, which we're confronting in our territory now. Having access, and he's referring to Indigenous knowledge and teachings online, means that we could say, here's a teaching that gives us some guidance on how to deal with ecological problems that are happening on the Saugeen Peninsula. Or here is a teaching, for example, that could be applied to personal injuries and property issues, or even to the way people do business with one another. It's pretty impressive what this kind of access to Indigenous knowledge could do for us. I think it could change the world. So in my discussions with John Burroughs, he told me that he uses fourdirectionsteachings.com in his Indigenous law courses. Burroughs elaborated that Indigenous teachings provide the opportunity to have a conversation and, more importantly, to deliberate around what they tell us. Indigenous teachings and knowledge provide the standards for judgment. They are the authorities, they are the guidelines, and therefore the precedents. For Burroughs, Indigenous knowledge teachings can set precedents in the legal sense of the term. Today, Burroughs, along with his colleague Val Napoleon, have created the first ever program in a Canadian law school, an integrated study of the common law and Indigenous legal traditions. Launched in 2018, the University of Victoria offers the first ever Indigenous law degree. So distinct from the field of Indigenous studies and digital storytelling and Indigenous new media art, digital bundles are recognized and accepted by Indigenous communities as Indigenous knowledge sites because they are community-based and validated according to diverse cultural protocols. In fact, I did not come up with the name digital bundle. It was graciously coined by Cheryl Rondell, an interdisciplinary, community-engaged mixed Cree artist who wanted to note that fourdirectionsteachings.com is not just another website. By calling it a digital bundle, Cheryl was lifting it up and pointing to the many responsibilities that come with carrying such a bundle. A digital bundle is a new cultural signifier. It is a new offering online that distinguishes itself from new media, art, digital storytelling, and information. In fact, a digital bundle is a new social movement online, as it is challenging existing dominant social configurations of power by contributing to social and political transformation from the periphery of what Sandy Grande calls white stream society. Digital bundles online help to revive and assert Indigenous knowledge. Digital bundles complement Sandy Grande's seminal work, Red Pedagogy, where the foundation, perspective, and production remain distinctive, rooted in Indigenous knowledge and praxis. Further, my research has demonstrated that access to more Indigenous knowledge education online would not only increase the viability of such knowledge, but could potentially facilitate better relationships between settlers and Indigenous communities. For example, Larry Chartrand, Métis law professor from Ottawa, shared, he said, I would like to see perhaps more in-depth sites of relevant legends and stories of particular nations, whether it is Dene or the Coast Salish, because one of the most important aspects of a viable legal tradition is to ensure its accessibility to those who are expected to be bound by it. An Indigenous corrections officer from the Northwest Territory shared that further, Canadians are not educated on what has happened to Aboriginal people. We need to have more sites online that teach people about the treaties and about history from an Aboriginal perspective. We need resources because they are not offered in the schools. These historical truths are not offered anywhere. To date, there is not a single funding body dedicated to supporting the production of Indigenous knowledge education projects online for the purposes of lifelong learning for Indigenous and Canadian people. I have currently reviewed what is on offer by Canadian Heritage and found it limiting in scope. For example, the Canada History Fund supports the development of learning materials and activities that contribute to increasing Canadians' knowledge about Canada. The Canada New Media Fund encourages the creation of popular, innovative Canadian content and software applications. Celebrate Canada provides funding for activities organized on National Indigenous Peoples Day, Saint Jean-Baptiste Day, Canadian Multiculturalism Day, and Canada Day. Commemorate Canada provides financial support to initiatives that commemorate Canada's significant people, places, achievements, and life events. And the Digital Citizen Research Program supports research on countering online disinformation as well as other online harms and threats to Canada's democracy and social cohesion. A few of the projects that actually are created for Indigenous communities are the Indigenous Language and Cultures Program. This promotes Indigenous languages, strengthens Indigenous cultural identity, and increases Indigenous participation in Canadian society. However, a close look at it shows that it's focused exclusively on language and not knowledge. And then another program was Listen Here. Our Voices initiative can fund Indigenous organizations to help digitize and preserve existing culture and language recordings for future generations. But when you look at this program, it is focused on archival work through digitization, which is a different type of project. So the problem with these programs, when I was looking at them, is that there is a huge problem with eligibility and gatekeeping. And the gatekeeping, I would argue, is embedded in the structure, the criteria, and values inherent in each program. For example, what kind of history will be accepted what kind of history will be accepted when focused on knowledge about Canada? So putting forward different types of history that come from Indigenous perspectives on colonization and talking about some of the brutal acts of oppression. Would those history projects get funded from this envelope? This is something I would question. What kind of new media is considered innovative when Canadians have no conception or reference for Indigenous knowledge? I remember years ago in 2006 submitting 4 directions to the Canada New Media Fund, to the Canada New Media Awards, and it wasn't even accepted or shortlisted. Right? And so, but that made sense at the time for the jurors and the people who were gatekeeping on that, because it was clear that they did not understand what the site was actually accomplishing. Celebrate Canada, well, that's not going to work, not even on National Indigenous Peoples Day. That's a very problematic envelope for many levels. Commemorate Canada features stories. Stop. Commemorate Canada by featuring the stories of Indigenous heroes. That would be great. And yeah, we can do that by calling to remembrance our warriors, but doing this inverts Canada's notion of itself. So to commemorate Canada here has 2 different appeals, right? What kind of Canada are we commemorating? So the last one I'll point to is digital citizen research. Indigenous knowledge education online would definitely contribute to democratic expression via digital bundles by confronting disinformation and promoting a paradigm of knowledge unknown to the citizens of Canada. But then again, that is not really what digital citizen research is set up to do. So with respect to the last 2 programs, as I said, they're kind of exclusively focused on either language or archival digitization, which doesn't really point to, prioritizing Indigenous knowledge. So here's a shout out to Canadian Heritage. Anytime you want to meet and discuss, let me know, because today in particular, when you are called to observe the National Truth and Reconciliation Day and the Commission's calls to action, remember that truth and responsibility is an everyday commitment to action. And until Canada calls into question its formation as a state, All of their funding programs are inherently problematic for Indigenous knowledge digital projects because they reify Canada as a just state. My policy recommendation is a funding body or a center that is dedicated to supporting the production of Indigenous knowledge digital projects for the purposes of addressing history, knowledge of treaties, tactics of colonization, and for elevating Indigenous knowledge teachings as digital bundles. My second policy recommendation, particularly on this day of all days, is to make Indigenous knowledge education a pillar of the public education system, where children have this knowledge scaffolded for them from JK to grade 12. This can be accomplished effectively with access to Indigenous knowledge education online. Having digital bundles online provides new possibilities for Indigenous communities and for people who are searching and wanting to learn more about Indigenous knowledges. A digital bundle then is not only a form of resistance and co-optation to the state, but a new infrastructure for creating community solidarity across Indigenous nations using our own cultural practices and protocols. A digital bundle is a significant Indigenous designation for Indigenous knowledge online because it elevates the cultural protocol and cultural responsibilities of the content. For Indigenous communities, the idea of a bundle speaks to knowledge that is grounded within Indigenous philosophical paradigms and knowledge. My research work verified that significant, respectful, and accurate representations of Indigenous knowledge can be presented online in ways that can help users access and become inspired by such knowledge. However, it is important to recognize that no mere tool, no matter how well designed or used, can ever replace or even come close to oral person-to-person transmission of traditional cultural knowledge. Consequently, any discussion of Indigenous knowledge online should be digested with this important principle in mind. And while certain aspects of Indigenous knowledge can be expressed through new technologies and can contribute to the needs of Indigenous communities, what I am not advocating for is the transmission of deep Indigenous knowledge, or what might be called ceremonial knowledge, as that is not the topic of my research. Rather, my interests are devoted to researching the need and potential for culturally sensitive resources that speak to diverse forms of Indigenous cultural heritage and the connections that can be made between new technologies and Indigenous epistemologies. This research requires us to look differently and to learn differently. In doing this work, it is important to understand that I had to position myself as a helper, which meant carefully following the directions of the elders and knowledge keepers and ensuring that every step of the project was met with their approval. A digital bundle is inclusive of and indeed executed according to local Indigenous cultural protocol, and therefore speaks directly to Megan Bang's notion of Indigenous technology. Quote, where our knowledge keepers, our elders, and our cultural producers are the architects and engineers of that construction process, unquote. It is for this reason that I want to stress and note that the term knowledge production used in the academic context is very different from the way I'm applying it in the usage of my work. The term knowledge production has different implications when used in the context of producing, I put that in quotes, Indigenous knowledge online. What is really being talked about here is not the production of knowledge in the sense of creating new knowledge. Rather, knowledge production here instead refers to the technical production of, or really reproduction of, aspects of long existing Indigenous knowledge in new formats and in relation to new contexts. In this sense, it's a sense of assembling, representing, and creatively configuring this pre-existing knowledge, but certainly not of creating it. Perhaps most importantly, the notion of a digital bundle and the type of knowledge production that I am undertaking acknowledges, by virtue of its deferral to respected knowledge keepers, that sharing and disseminating aspects of Indigenous Knowledge Online, while important for various reasons, can never fully reflect or let alone come close to replacing the oral transmission of traditions on the basis of a real spiritual connection. So in this way, I have a responsibility in my role in the academy, and that is to refuse the structure and paradigms of the university that would turn Indigenous knowledge into a commodity. Consequently, I have to find ways to articulate that are other ways of working and other ways of being in the world that support Indigenous epistemologies and paradigms. And so when I talk about the role of the helper, this is another way of thinking of how to work within the ethics and care of community. Consequently, many of the digital bundle projects that I work on come from community models that are invested in Indigenous networking protocols. Rarely do I envision or come up with a digital bundle. Oftentimes it comes from community itself. So for example, Victor Maseva Jr., who is a well-regarded artist and Hopi knowledge keeper, contacted me to come and work with the Indigenous timekeepers, who have been meeting across North and South America since before 2012. I was so surprised and honored to hear from him because we've never met. And while he spoke, he verified with me that I see myself as a helper, and that he was familiar with the kind of work I do from visiting fourdirectionsteachings.com and from hearing about my online support for the late Jake Swamp's condolence ceremony at the headwaters of the Mississippi in 2012. And so for me, that connection was so humbling because it is the way that people validate you through community. They look at what you do and not what you say. And so you see, it was important that I could see myself as a helper. And he said that was good because it's a good thing that we have helpers, because then our elders and knowledge keepers want helpers. They want people who can help them and not just take from them or use them for inspiration, which speaks to extractive practices. So working with Indigenous values and processes are very different, especially if you position yourself as a helper. It is understood that in the role of a helper, you accept that your role is not interpretation or transmission, but facilitator. You're facilitating this knowledge that is coming from a very specific knowledge keeper or elder. This model and practice are very different from the Western roles of producer, director, or even artist. So even when I talk about my work, as a shorthand, I'll say a producer, because I know if I write in my bio helper, it's going to go over people's heads. They're not going to understand that role, that cultural signification, and what it means from an Indigenous perspective to be a helper. So this is really important that we start to look at the different kinds of models and paradigms and how they inform these different kinds of cultural signifiers. So in saying this, I want to point out that unfortunately, the media arts world works against this helper approach, even though it is at the heart of Indigenous practices. Instead, there is an impetus to attach oneself to the Western model of what art is, what media is, and to create art, or the art world. It is about celebrity and about cachets of little bits of power. And it's just so sad because Indigenous people are often forced to take up a whole history and theory of art practice and media practices that are not our own. So in doing this work, it's also being able to talk about different media practices and different ways of articulating those media practices. Working as a helper reinvigorates Indigenous collaborative models of community creation. For example, in the research I'm undertaking now for Indigenous timekeepers, the elders and knowledge keepers I'm working with understand that we are creating knowledge bundles and that these bundles will be created through utilizing new technologies. We are all open to the process and have acknowledged that we will have to take great care and time to work with these technologies to ensure that they are respectful and appropriate to the task at hand. So in this sense, with my discussions with communities, we are looking, is this teaching, is this project more suitable for augmented reality? Is this work, this knowledge more suitable for interactive documentary or even virtual reality? To better articulate a digital bundle's significance, I turn to the work of Leah Levereau's book, Alternative and Activist New Media, which inspired me to recognize that Indigenous Knowledge Online is itself a contemporary, alternative, and activist new media project. I came upon this work while searching for ways to frame my analysis of Indigenous knowledge online. I was particularly struck by her discussion of 5 basic genres of contemporary, alternative, and activist new media projects, which you can see here are culture jamming, alternative computing, participatory journalism, mediated mobilization, and commons knowledge. These 5 online genres, according to Levereau, do not only reflect or critique mainstream media and culture, they constitute and intervene in them. So desperate to find out where and how fourdirectionsteachings.com might fit into this array of alternative new media, I reviewed each genre carefully. However, I concluded that none really fits how fourdirectionsteachings.com was conceived or how it works. Although aspects of mediated mobilization and commons knowledge projects could be used to describe the work of fourdirectionsteachings.com, that would be like trying to fit a square block into a round hole. For example, according to Levereau, mediated mobilization relates to the domain of political, cultural organizing, and social movements. She further explains that it takes advantage of web-based social software tools like social networks, personal blogs, flash mobs, email listservs, as well as do-it-yourself digital media to cultivate interpersonal networks online and to mobilize those networks to engage in live and mediated collective action. The Idle No More movement and Indigenous protest movement might be described in these terms. It used Facebook, personal blogs, websites, and listservs to mobilize community flash dances in public spaces. Four Directions Teachings does not facilitate the same kind of public presence in the streets. It has enabled users to act in the sense that many have requested more materials, both for online and for offline use. And more importantly, the project has facilitated connections to elders presented on fourdirectionsteachings.com for Indigenous communities seeking their expertise. With respect to the Commons Knowledge Project, Levereau writes that they, quote, reorganize and categorize information in ways that can challenge or reframe established expert knowledge classifications of mainstream cultural institutions and disciplines, unquote. This genre, she expounds, relates to the content of culture itself, the nature of knowledge and expertise, how information is organized and evaluated, and who decides. Commons knowledge projects are framed in direct response to established Western knowledge constructs and therefore are seen as radical and subversive of dominant power relations. For Indigenous communities that have never seen their knowledge appreciated or presented in public spaces, Indigenous knowledge projects online, such as Four Directions, are radical and antithetical to the colonial education and textbooks used throughout North America. It could be argued that Four Directions in some ways is a commons knowledge project because of the subversive and alternative position that it occupies. Yet I would posit that this genre is too limiting because it cannot fully acknowledge the depth of the work and impact of Indigenous knowledge online. To acknowledge this impact, I argue in my book, A Digital Bundle, that Indigenous knowledge projects online are a unique genre. So while I appreciate Levereau's discussion of the 5 basic genres of contemporary, alternative, and activist new media projects, none is an ideal fit for Indigenous knowledge online. However, I'm inspired by her thinking about genres and how it applies to activism on the internet. Indeed, it was her writing on the notion of genre that helped me to accept the offering of Four Directions Teachings as a digital bundle. Levereau defines the genre as a type of expression or communication that is useful or meaningful among the members of a given community or within a particular situation. She says genres have both form and purpose. That is, they have a typical material features or follow certain format conventions, and they allow people to express themselves appropriately and to achieve their various purposes or intentions in a given situation. So thinking about her work and with this in mind, it is important to understand that the concept of a digital bundle comes from diverse Indigenous knowledge paradigms that recognize that a bundle refers to a collection of things that are regarded as sacred in some way and held by a person with care and ceremony. This definition is very different from commons projects. For example, a bundle could be a wrapping holding an eagle wing or feather, or containing a rattle or a pipe, or often an item used in ceremony, along with medicines like tobacco, dried plants, or even dried plants for smudging. Some bundles may be handed down through a family. Other bundles are community bundles and hold a great deal of power, as with very old pipe bundles, some of which may even go back to the beginning of a specific revealed ceremony or tradition that supports the whole community. In this case, the person holding the bundle must undergo a thorough, rigorous process of learning about the meaning of the tradition or ceremony and how it gets transferred to the members of the community. For example, Chief Arvro Looking Horse of the Lakota, Dakota, Nakota Nations is highly regarded when at the age of 12, he received the sacred white buffalo half pipe bundle and its teachings. Based on these responsibilities, it can be said that a bundle is a lifelong commitment. If not, then the bundle has to be responsibly passed on or otherwise released, and never simply neglected or discarded in a disrespectful way. Because Four Directions Teachings is a collection of teachings by respected elders and traditional teachers who have shared Indigenous knowledge in culturally specific ways, it has been embraced by Indigenous community members as a digital bundle. Hence, the site is a type of expression and communication that is meaningful and recognizable to diverse Indigenous communities, while at the same time being completely unreadable and unrecognizable to non-Indigenous communities. This notion is in keeping with Livro, who also points out that genres have many other significant facets that make them, quote, relevant for alternative and activist new media projects. She writes, they help mediate or facilitate communication among members of communities. Quoting the work of Kevin Croston and Marie Williams, Livro includes their note that genres are useful because they make communication more easily recognizable and understandable by recipients. Thus, she says, genres are the means for creating and maintaining community and social contexts and the cultural products of those communities and contexts. Moreover, she argues that genres can also be so specific to a certain group's worldview or situation that outsiders may not understand them. So genres can also act as boundaries or markers that exclude outsiders and reinforce the power of insiders. Citing Croston and Williams once more, Livro concludes that recognition of a particular genre is one sign of membership in a particular community. Indigenous communities understand traditional bundles to be representative of traditional cultural expression, which carries cultural protocol and responsibilities. These protocols and responsibilities differ across diverse Indigenous nations. A digital bundle is a new offering online, a new genre, a new social movement, because it does not fit within existing frameworks online. Indigenous knowledge is a complex epistemological paradigm that embodies ceremonial protocols. Only elders and teachers who have been gifted the Indigenous knowledge and teachings in this way can share those teachings publicly and transfer them. This type of Indigenous knowledge is often considered as belonging to the community and held in trust by knowledge keepers and elders expected to abide by the cultural protocols entrusted to that knowledge. As a producer of Indigenous knowledge media projects and as an academic, I make it part of my practice to articulate this distinction so as not to assume or usurp the role of a knowledge keeper or disrespect the Indigenous protocols carried and held by elders who carry the Indigenous knowledge of their communities. In clearly articulating my knowledge as acquired knowledge and in recognizing Indigenous knowledge keepers and elders as representing the Indigenous knowledge protocols of their communities, I am honoring the diverse copyright. That is the protocols, or what John Burroughs might refer to as the legal traditions of diverse Indigenous nations. Therefore, in thinking about a bundle and what it means, we have to be mindful with the care and passing on of bundles, and that these are sacred things, and that they are, or at least could be, or have a ceremony to go along with that process. In this way, our protocols note what is in the commons and what is not. So in closing, I ask you, what do you know about Indigenous knowledge? What do you know about our cultural signifiers and relational paradigms? How many of you know what treaty you live in and how that treaty came about and whether it was created in good faith? I also want you to reflect on what you learned about Indigenous knowledge in your public or private education. In reflecting upon these questions, what kind of truth do you seek out every day? What kind of responsibility do you take in building good relations with the first peoples of this continent? Our Indigenous timekeepers have said that the time is now. Take responsibility and step out of your comfort zone and learn a new way of being and perceiving the world. Because now more than ever, we need truth, we need responsibility, and we need to take care of our communities, the land, the water, the sky, and all living beings. Once we do that, then we can talk about reconciliation. Miigwech.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was so expansive and really like echoing or vibrating off of, I guess, community stories, community knowledge, community pain, and articulated in such a way that it reminded me of conversations that I've had with my own Sturgeon Lake family, and knowledges that I carry that are held like bundles, but more in the form of like stories and the sharing of experiences that unglue me in some ways. So I really appreciate the assemblage, the idea and the creation of assemblages as a way to kind of think about how we land into relation with each other, that like the turtle's back, there are all of these different fractals of experience and of ways of knowing, but also the stories that we keep hidden or that we keep in a special place, like a bundle. Whereas we know that if we were to mention these stories, if we were to talk about these stories specifically on Orange Shirt Day, that they will be taken up in a particular way. So what are those stories that we keep safe and kept and protected out of our love for these relations that share these stories with us? So I guess I was thinking about, as you were speaking, Cheryl Larondel, who is like an auntie to me, and Cheryl Larondel's activation of digital bundles, and thinking with Cheryl about the light teepee that they are going to be activating in Toronto for Nuit Blanche. And I was thinking about the light teepee as sort of this, like I see this word resonant, resonant chamber or hub of Indigenous futurity, of the fractals and the assemblages that we are and that our bodies are. And I know that this work that you're doing, or I feel it, is really challenging work, because you are in relationship to all of these layers, to all of these stories, to all of this knowledge. And then what do you put in a public, like what do you surface in a public situation, like writing a book or doing a talk? So, you know, I just wanted to say with gratitude that I see you, but I see all of these other, I see you as an assemblage of all of these other stories, all of these other, you know, shared intimacies, all these other relations, and the language and the visuals that you construct for us are so helpful and also so intimate. So I just wanted to thank you for your sharing today.
Miigwech, Karen, I'm keeping my mute because I've got garbage day here. I'm sure you guys can hear it so loud.
Yeah, I hear it.
Yeah, I also want to thank you, Jennifer, for your beautiful presentation. I have to acknowledge that, you know, I have used Four Directions teachings in my teaching practice for many years, and I continue to do so. And the site is such a gift, and anyone who's seen it or has used it for teaching practice knows the thought and the care that went into that, and the protocols that are embedded within that sharing. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful site. Such a thoughtful and relevant talk about all of these considerations that need to go into Indigenous knowledge projects online, that are transferable to so many different contexts. And I think will definitely inform a lot of the conversations that are going to be going on today. So I think it's your talk really nicely prefigures, and hopefully will inform a lot of those discussions. So, you know, Miigwech, thank you so much for that.
Miigwech, John.
We also, I guess the assemblage, or the beautiful thinkers and the brilliant thinkers that are in this digital space right now. I was wondering if folks that are witnessing this work could help us in articulating the gratitude that we began with today, and also to think expansively about how this sharing lands for you, and perhaps like reciprocate in that way for Jennifer's offering today. So is there anybody amongst us that would like to do so? Yeah, please feel free to reciprocate in the comments or through the microphone. TL, please.
Hi, everyone. Actually, let me just lower my hand because I'll forget otherwise. Thank you, Jennifer, for this amazing work and for the work that you have continued to do. And I have learned so much since meeting you when you arrived at the University of Toronto. The first time we met at, I think it was at the McLuhan Center. And I saw you, another tall woman across the room, and I thought, we are going to be friends. And we became friends. And I'm so grateful for that friendship and for learning from you. In particular, the conversations that we've had about what it means to think about being a scholar and being a scholar of digital culture, and as a digital maker, as a helper, and what kinds of responsibilities we can bear and share. For me, I think about it in the context of my settlerness and my whiteness. And I also think about the thing, and I think about this also, I'm thinking with the three of you, and being, very familiar with the work that Karen, you do on constellatory practices, and John, the work that you do with First Story. And one of the things I'm so grateful for today is thinking about how this work is a landing, but it's also a skying, it's also a watering, it's also a relating. And it's not just about thinking about how we can instrumentalize this knowledge in a settler framework, but actually thinking about how we can have it impact us, impact the way that we work and think and relate to each other, but not just thinking about, oh, how can I grab a quote from this and put it in my talk today? Sorry, if anyone was thinking about doing that, you can still do it. But I'm just thinking about, you know, the ways that settler scholarship has such a domination and extraction logic, and that our instinct and our habit is to just grab. How can I turn this into a soundbite that's going to reinforce my ideas? And I think for one of the things that I learned through your humility in your helper methods and helper way of working is really thinking about responsibility, but also really thinking about giving up that idea, that ego idea of original knowledge, and thinking that as a scholar, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to claim something as original that is mine, and that is what is going to land me my brand. That's what's going to land me my reputation. That's what's going to land me my tenure. And instead, to think about landing in a way of the humility of the helper and the humility of a sense to responsibility. And I think the way that you're thinking about this day as truth and responsibility, as opposed to truth and reconciliation, is so extremely meaningful to me, especially as I go through processes of trying to think about who I am as a scholar in relation to the knowledges that I'm around. So I know that's babbly, but I'm so grateful to our friendship, to all of you, and to what I've learned from all of you since we have come together at U of T over the last handful of years. And I'm so grateful to be sharing this space with you today and always.
Thanks so much, TL. That was beautiful. And I should say, also really appreciate the work that we've been doing and the conversations we've had over the years as well. Always beautiful. There's some comments in the chat as well that I'd like to read out for Jennifer to hear, because I don't think Jennifer is able to always see the chat. So Jazz has written, Jennifer, your work is always such a gift to those of us and in and around digital humanities, critical data, and new media studies. I especially love today how you point to the challenge that your helper methodology poses to colonial media studies, media arts, and digital humanities, which insists so much on the new and the singular. So very much in line with what TL was saying there as well.
Yeah, and, I also appreciated that TL thinking through those logics of extraction and extractive knowledge. And I'm wondering, Jennifer, if you wanted to speak to TL and Jazz's provocations or offerings or offers of gratitude.
Yeah, miigwech for that. It's a little quieter now. The garbage is moved down or up the street. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, sitting and working with different elders, like, so I've had the good fortune, as I mentioned, working with the Indigenous timekeepers. So even being able to sit in conversation with the Kogis, right? And have like people interpret and be able to talk and meet with all of these knowledge keepers and elders. And what I see is that what people carry in terms of their bundles and their knowledge, it's huge. It's like, so it's so interesting because we're always taught in a colonial education system that our knowledge is dead or dying or it's lost. And when I'm out there talking to these elders and knowledge keepers across South and North America, it's just a wealth of knowledge. And what they choose to share with us is just a tiny little intro. It's just a snippet. And so I feel like, so when we talk about what is extraction, it's like, no, they know what they're doing, right? So as a helper, I'm just deferring to them, and I can see that, yeah, what they're sharing with us is just a snippet. And yet it's so profound because it comes from heart knowledge. It comes from Debwaywen, right? It comes from truth. And so, yeah, and so I think about that, and I think about how all of the work that we're doing, you know, the elders always talk about that power of the circle, and Indigenous timekeepers, those elders are all coming and sitting in circle, and they're not coming to compete and say whose knowledge is more important or better or whose story, but they're coming to understand and strengthen the knowledge that they carry. Right. And that's the way I like to think about the community. That's the kind of academic work I want to do. I want to come and strengthen with other people the work. Right. So let's strengthen and help each other with our ideas and our concepts. And let's not like, let's model what those Indigenous timekeepers do. Right. Let's like model those community practices, because they're very beautiful. And that's why I think, you know, as an academic, I try not to spend a lot of time doing a lot of self-promotion on social media and that kind of thing, because it's not where I want to put my energy. And I don't know how that's going to affect my tenure later. But I think that, yeah, I'm really wanting to engender these good relationships where we bring people into the circle and model those community practices, because that's where the strength is. And that's what we're going to need, you know, when we're dealing with the world and the craziness that exists in the world.
You're muted, John.
Sorry, I was just saying that TL had a follow-up comment in response, Jennifer, in the chat that said that it reminds me of the subtitle of your book, To Protect and Promote. Yeah. There were a few other comments that I could read out for you, Jennifer, if you'd like to respond to them. Thank you, Jennifer. This is Hayden. Thank you, Jennifer, for this presentation and sharing the importance of using voice to make change within the state and the colonial framework still in place, but also for sharing the importance of careful collaboration and being a helper in order to respectfully share the important traditional knowledge. And that helper orientation is so important for anyone who's even thinking about beginning an Indigenous knowledge project online in collaboration with the community. And it's such a resonant concept. Yeah.
Yeah, miigwech for that. Yeah. It is.
And then Anne has written, I'm so grateful for this space this morning. Jennifer, your beautiful, powerful presentation has given me so much to consider as a librarian. Thanks for citing Sandy Littletree and my position in these structures and my own role as a helper.
Yeah. Yeah, and what I really loved about that article is that we can see that, you know, and the way you and Karen opened up today talking about those kinds of relational paradigms, that those are being brought into all kinds of spaces, including the way that, you know, librarians work and information technology are thinking of how to sort through information, right? And they're starting to think about the relationship of what constitutes that information. And that's a whole other way of thinking. It's a different paradigm, right? So I think that, yeah, this is what we're talking about. What do people really know when they think about, you know, how they define or think about what is Indigenous knowledge and what it constitutes, right? It's not just stories. It's a whole philosophical shift. It's a whole paradigm onto itself. And that's why I think that this colonial erasure continues. Like, even when we look at those funding envelopes, how difficult would it be for Canadian Heritage to create an Indigenous knowledge funding envelope, right? So that we don't have to do all of this kind of dancing and finagling and twisting ourselves into a pretzel to get that proposal in to hopefully get funded so that we can, you know, do the work. And that's where I'm so frustrated by that process.
Yeah, I was really struck by that list that you shared in your presentation as well, because it seemed like even the two Indigenous knowledge funds for bringing knowledge online were kind of focused on this assumption that, you know, the only thing that's important to do with Indigenous knowledge is to archive it online. Like, as if Indigenous knowledge wasn't future oriented, and that it wasn't, you started your presentation with the UNDRIP you know, part that said Indigenous peoples have a right to a cultural future, to adapt culture online and to perpetuate it into the future. So why is archiving, you know, the sort of the go-to thing, you know, when there is so much more that is continuous and future oriented in Indigenous worldings?
Mm-hmm. And I think that archiving is just speaking to that perception of the dying cultures, the dying knowledge, like, oh, let's hurry up and archive it. And that's where I just think that's just a joke, because when you talk to those elders in those communities, the wealth of knowledge is phenomenal. Sorry, Karen?
Oh, I was just about to mention, I'm reading through Murphy's offering and thinking about the reflections on like the different time scales that are required. And I'm thinking about the bundles in, I guess, Treaty 6 area, and thinking through only taking out at certain times, and that there's a community of people that care, or there's a family that cares for the bundle, and then there's a community that is witness to this alternative time scale, this alternative space making technology of a bundle. And those kinds of spatial scales, temporal scales, are not, there's very few spaces that can operate with those alternative spatial timescales, specifically in the digital, because how do we slow things down in the digital to be able to reflect those original intentions and also responsibilities in terms of relational practice with each other? So I loved how Murphy articulated that. Murphy, do you want to speak to your comment? I'm putting you on the spot. If not, it's okay.
I'm like, well, okay. Yeah, I will. Thank you, everybody. It was so lovely to hear everything this morning, and thank you, Jennifer. Yes, the thinking about the time scales, exactly like Karen was saying, both questions of pace and slowness, but also questions of season and appropriateness and the whenness of when certain things are right to do, and who needs to come together, and who, you know, all the who's that need to come together to do a digital bundle. And just reflecting on the ways that scholarship and funding, are always asking for acceleration and a digital rapidity. And even thinking of, future as a place of like rapidness and quickness and having a forward arrow. And so I would be very curious to hear Jennifer's thought on these issues of time, especially now that she's working with timekeepers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a huge question. I think about I had written on the bio that I was currently working on an augmented reality teaching. So an AR teaching with Dr. Gokamis, Jacques Lavallee. And we're still tweaking it. It's still taking time, but we did bring that teaching to life by bringing it to life through ceremony at the Biennale, right? And so just with Four Directions teachings, I don't go into a lot of depth about it, but that was brought into ceremony by Elder Lillian Pitawanakwit Ba, right? So we were there. I thought, oh, I'll just go up there with my recording device and, up north to meet with her, and, she'll share with us, and this is like early days, she'll share with us whatever she wants to share in terms of a teaching, and then we'll leave. And that's not what happened. She ended up keeping us there for like 4 days, and we ended up doing a sweat and going to Dreamers Rock and doing a meditation, and then she brought out her pipe and there was ceremony, and this was all to launch the project. Like, she knew what had to be done, because by the time I got to Blackfoot country, Reg Crowshoe was saying, under whose authority are you here? And I was so green and confused and so new to everything. And I thought, well, it's funded by Canadian Heritage. And he said, no, under which cultural authority? And so he started talking to me about venue, action, language, song, all the things that go into ceremony. And when he said that, then I understood, and I explained to him what Lily and Petawanequid had done in terms of launching the project. And he said, that was good. Now I know. Okay, so the Anishinaabe was put through this ceremony from the Anishinaabe. So it's all of this stuff becomes, yeah, like a way of thinking about culture and ceremony and ceremonial knowledge and ceremonial time. And it's stuff that I don't really talk about because it exists in that space, right? It's difficult to even bring it into the book or things like that because it's yeah, I can't think about like the things around the time scales, like those are that happen at different times of the year. Those are ceremonies. And so the ceremonies aren't something that I think that can be reflected in digital work. I think that an introduction to the concept of the ceremony maybe can be reflected and talked about, but the ceremony itself cannot be captured in these virtual spaces. And so, yeah, so I just think of it that way. And I think about the timekeepers and, you know, what they're doing is so profound because they have been meeting since before 2012 because they could see that, as you all know, in pop culture, 2012 marked the end of the Baktun cycle. And so for pop culture, a lot of people thought, oh, the Mayans said it was the end of the world, but it wasn't the end of the world. It was just the end of a grand cycle, right, of their calendar. And so the timekeepers recognized that, and they were meeting because what happened in a very short version is that the world is held up by 4 trees in the Mayan calendar. When the Baktun cycle ended, one of those trees collapsed. And so for 13 years, we are living off balance. The earth is off balance, it's off kilter. And so that tree is going to rise again in 2026. Right. So again, this is stuff that you can't really convey, like we can talk about it, but we can't really convey. And so those are time scales. And when that tree rises, they say that's the beginning of the new dawn. And that's why the Indigenous timekeepers are working, because the elders believe that we have to share certain parts of Indigenous knowledge, our teachings, with little brother. So anyone who's not Indigenous is little brother. So if you don't know your cultural teachings and your Indigenous knowledge and know your community and your ways, then you're little brother, right? Because, and so it's really, yeah, so it's really beautiful that when we think about all of this, that there is just so much to that question in terms of thinking about time within Indigenous frameworks, right? And so, yeah, it helps me better understand the world we're in now, that it does seem very off kilter. I can't believe someone like Trump got elected. I can't believe, you know, that we've had this pandemic. I think that the timekeepers were definitely right, and they knew that we were going to have this span. But what they're working towards is saying, how are we going to enter that new dawn in 2026? How are we going to enter into that new space, that new time? And that's the question. That's why they're saying we have to all come together. We have to think differently. We have to learn differently.
Thank you, Jennifer. That feels like a really important time in this moment to say thank you. We're grateful for you. We're grateful for the work that you do. We're grateful for who you are and your processes. And we thank you so much for sharing with us today what those processes look like, so that we can lean into them, think alongside them, meditate on them, and co-constitute this gorgeous future that you're dreaming up in relationship with all these wonderful, wonderful people. Thank you. And thank you to also those who shared their brilliant thoughts with us. And thank you to my co-host, John, for being the brilliant thinker and lovely human you are. And I hope that we all take care of ourselves today. and just hug each other a little bit closer, maybe. And thank you for the invitation.
Miigwech, Jennifer, for your beautiful thoughts and for your generous sharing after all of that deep and complex thinking. And it's a lot, especially on a day like today. So thank you so much for this gift and this offering. Thanks to the organizers of the conference for inviting us to be in relationship with you today. And again, to everyone assembled for their thoughts and contributions in reciprocation. Miigwech, I hope you all enjoy what's coming this day.
And on behalf of CDHI and the organizing team, I just wanted to thank you, the three of you, for such an incredible and powerful start to our conference. As bringing us down to the banality of settler time, I'll just give some timestamps for things coming up. So we're starting some concurrent virtual sessions at 10:40. All of those sessions, and you should have been emailed the Zoom links. If you can't find them, they're on the website. The full program for today and tomorrow is on the website. So we'll have sessions from 10:40 to 12:10, and then a lunch break, and then we'll have our second plenary, which is a special session featuring Sophia Noble, Alex Gilles, and Angel David Nieves on anti-racist architectures, equitable DH technologies, and infrastructures, which will be moderated by U of T's own Sarah Sharma. So thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Karen and John. This was an incredible start to our morning, and I look forward to seeing you all for the rest of the day. Have a good one.
Miigwech, everyone. Thank you.